I want to start today by giving Neoliberalism 101. And
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. How are my peeps doing? I trust everybody's doing just fine. Welcome aboard in the house. Let's see, in the house, we start with para ver. ABQ was number one in the house today from Brooklyn, New York. We've got, of course, as well, para ver, Yvette Avery Herod, numero dos from Atlanta, Georgia. Michael and Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia. Eric Hayes from Kingwood, Atascocita. Mike Cisak from Missouri. Welcome aboard, folks. Welcome aboard. On the chat, remembering that we get the first few dozen, but we've got Marge KJ in the house, Linda in the house, and FemK. How are my peeps doing? I trust everybody is doing fine. Okay, how do we get started here? Let's see. Testing. Where's the Restream bot? I don't know. I hope it's there now. I hope so. Let's see. Michael says, I'm feeling out of the loop. What the heck is going on in Nepal? New York Times, protesters set fire to Nepal's parliament. Army says it will send troops to restore order. Protester, I think the prime minister actually resigned. Protesters defied a curfew to attack government buildings and the homes of politicians, and unrest over censorship and economic issues attached into a second day. 22 people have been killed in the violence. The departure of Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli came a day after the Nepalese authorities opened fire in the crowds, leaving 19 dead. And I think they actually had to open up the internet, I think, if I recall. I haven't been covering this story all that much so, but what can I say? 12 on your side. Grocery from Michael Ruddin as well. Grocery costs driving nearly half of Virginians into debt. New study shows. New findings from No Kid Hungry. Virginia revealed that rising food costs are driving 45% of Virginians into debt. Among middle income Americans, select all that apply in the last 12 months. Have you had to choose between buying enough nutritious food for your household and saving for retirement? 44% paying for gas, 41% paying a utility bill, 35% paying your rent or mortgage, 34% getting healthcare, 30% paying for education, 27%. None of these, 30%. I am in the one of these 30% and appalled that the number isn't up above 99%. We live in a broken society. Yes, we live in a broken society. And one of the things that's wrong with society as well is that people don't understand that we are in dire straits. And they haven't yet figured out how to assign blame appropriately. And one of the reasons they don't assign blame appropriately is because of how we were indoctrinated. We have been indoctrinated into thinking this is the way things have to be, and it's not. Things do not have to be the way it is. We have a broken economic system, a system that has been broken from our inception. The glide path of the economic system has led to exactly where we are today. And that is what many people fear, don't understand. The economic system is behaving exactly as it was designed. And until we figure that out, we won't go through the economic revolution that we need to come through. This is going to require an economic revolution in healthcare, economic revolution in the way that the economy is configured, etc. But we have to first understand what the genesis of the problem is. And I did a piece this morning that I cut again I cut down to make it clearer, I hope. And what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to play that piece. But before we play that piece, I have a couple other things I'd like to talk about. Welcome, Mary Phil Potts, as well as Arlene Fucillo. If I bastardize your name, forgive me. Let's see. What else have we got here? Faraver. I'm scrolling down. Lee Grant is also in the house. Welcome aboard, Lee Grant. Michael says, Egberto, unfortunate, I posted my comments in the wrong order. Should have asked you to put the image on the screen. What is the image? Okay, it doesn't matter with the order you posted, Michael. It's not out of order at all. That's fine. Let's get that image onto the screen. Food costs continue to rise, and let's see what that income says. Rising food costs are causing major damage to Virginians' financial well-being. It's not only Virginia. I know a lot of people in Texas buying all their foods on credit cards and not paying that off at the end of the month, which means they're constantly accumulating debt for groceries. That's a bad place to be in. Virginians are making difficult trade-offs between food and other essentials. Good point there. Saving for retirement. Let's see. Select all that apply in the past 12 months. Have you had to choose between buying enough nutritious food for your household and saving for retirement? All 35%. Oh, I see what you're saying, though. I mean, it's interesting because it turns out that you would think it's a lot higher for saving for retirement, right? But you know what? That number may also say, Michael, that number may also say that most people are not saving for retirement. And of the ones that are saving for retirement, 35% of them are in dire straits. And that actually makes sense because what it says is, imagine if even the people that are capable of saving for retirement, 35% of those, so I don't know, maybe that is what the dynamics is saying there, because if you add those numbers up, let's see, 35. Yeah, those numbers don't add up to over 100. So yeah, I think that those numbers need a bit more context. All right, let's see who else we've got in the house. Egberto, most people don't have money left over after essentials in order to save for it. That's my point. I didn't see that message, but that's my point. All right, let me just say this before we get into the soliloquy from this morning. I want to tell you that Anand Giridharadas wrote a piece and they covered it on MSNBC, and he had some commentaries on MSNBC that I want to play because he nailed it. We are in dire straits right now. We are in dire straits. We are in existential times right now. And I think what Giridharadas is saying is that how can you be in existential times and Democrats not out there buck wild raising hell in every single district? How? Why not? We see Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doing it. We see Maxwell Frost doing it. But you would think there would be more Democrats out there going buck you know what crazy, and you don't. So what I want you to do is listen to this piece. I cut it down quite a bit from Anand Giridharadas on this morning's Morning Joe, and then let's take it on the other side because I really want to go through some of these particular issues. Check this out.
You say that Democrats can learn something from this insight that John Sinner had following his loss to Carlos Alcaraz.
I was very predictable today, on court in a way of he did many things. He changed up the game, are comfortable, but you always do the same things where you have to go out of the comfort zone.
So yeah, you wrote this. As soon as I saw him voice that extremely self-aware analysis at the post-match press conference, it struck me as a tidy and apt summary of why Democrats have, in the main, been so inadequate to this moment. It is killing us. Get wild, get weird, hit a drop shot, sit in at the Capitol, serve and volley, shut down the government and see what happens. Hit a slice, make a speech for the ages. The country will not be saved by politicians who behave as though they are auditioning for senior partnerships in publicity-shy law firms. Stop playing like Sinner and play like a sinner.
You know, the difference between Yannick Sinner and the Democrats is that he knows he has this problem. You know, it was so striking. And to be clear, for people who don't follow tennis, he was the #1 ranked player in the world. So it was a self-criticism of the #1 ranked player in the world who watched this match, who lost this match and lost that top ranking in the match. And what he was saying was not that he's not good, it's that he's so good, he's so practiced, that he just does his excellently practiced shots over and over. And in a lot of the men's game in tennis these days, it's like that. They weightlift now in a way they didn't 30, 40 years ago. It's these big slugs back and forth. And what Alcaraz did in that match was mix it up. And what Democrats are failing to do is just that. It is the same old press conferences that no one pays attention to. It's the same tired phrases that no one cares. Listen to Hakeem Jeffries. They say the word "as it relates to," a lawyerly phrase, as you know. They're politicians. They're not supposed to sound like they're arguing criminal procedure. They don't take risks. They refused to shut down the government 6 months ago. Now there's a question of whether they'll do it this time. They keep warning people that this is fascism, this is authoritarianism, and yet they don't actually behave with the kind of dice rolling ethic that you'd expect for someone who actually thinks that. So what it does is it makes you look at them and think they actually don't believe it.
So it was also so interesting about what Sinner said. He even went on to say, like, I'm going to have to change up how I play. I might lose some tournaments along the way because I have to adjust to a new style. I have to be less predictable. I'm willing to take some defeats in order for the bigger game.
The Democratic Party, like a lot of center-left parties around the world, has gone from being a labor union adjacent party to an educated elite Harvard faculty lounge adjacent party. That's just facts. As that has happened, it has lost the culture of kind of picking fights, which is what unions do. And it has gained the culture of niceties, of not making mistakes, of triple checking things, of being careful, right? That's what people in the Harvard faculty lounge do. And there's a place for that. But winning political fights against an authoritarian takeover is not that. And so, yeah, a government shutdown is a perfect example of something that could absolutely transform the dynamic of this country and actually create a real opposition and galvanize the public against Trump. And it could fail, and it could make people hate you. And you should absolutely take that risk if you're in politics. We sit at this table every day. If you want people not to think anything badly of you, no one should sit at this table, right? To try anything, to try to have any impact on anything means taking risks. And people whose lodestar is risk aversion, and if you've listened to any major Democratic leader give a speech in the last year, you have understood people whose lodestar is risk aversion. You're just not adequate to this moment. And I say, I know these people, some of them are my friends. If you are not up to this moment, there is no shame in golfing. It is a wonderful sport. There's no shame in going to that law firm. There's no shame in becoming the lobbyist you've always dreamed of being. But get out of the way. There are people who know how to fight. Get out of their damn way.
Exactly. Get out of the way if you're not willing to fight. And I think he nails it. And I think he nails it correctly. And one hopes that the Democrats, look, let's just give an example that Mandami have shown the Democratic Party what their people want, that they had given him an overwhelming win, and that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are unable to come out full-throatedly and endorse this guy is exactly what Anand Giridharadas is talking about there. And again, it is sad, but you know what? I think, like I've spoken to many people before, it is time to get past the party. In other words, don't leave the party, don't manhandle the party, just get past the party. In other words, those of us who know what needs to be done need to get it done. Those of us who know We must engage people in all parts of this country. We must speak to their hearts. We must speak to what we are going to do. That's what we must do. Those of us who understand that we have got to get to, let's give some examples. The farmers, right? The farmers are, look, let's be clear here. The farmers don't need forgiveness, they need atonement. Because the farmers, the ones that you saw vote for Donald Trump, yes, they were a whole bunch of conceited, many of them conceited racists. And what racism has done for a very long time is exactly what it is doing to them right now. Racism generally doesn't necessarily hurt the people who the racism is against any more so than how it has always been. In other words, the people who are the victims of racism have been so damn used to it that additional racist acts don't make them that much more pained. But what it does is your own when racism is used by capitalism as a tool, as it always has been, you're the one who suffer because they use your weakness. They use your prejudice against you. And that's what occurred with the farmers. The farmers hate foreigners, so they want USAID gone. The farmers hate those people from south of the border, those brown people. But those are the ones who make their land profitable. They are the ones, and the farmers really wanted those tariffs to get those foreigners who are dumping steel, all this kind of stuff. But Trump didn't want tariffs for that. Trump wanted tariffs to go ahead and do something, right? To make money. And he did it at the expense of the farmers. So, I mean, as we take a look at what's going on here, Giridharadas is absolutely right. It's time for them to just get to hell out. Get to hell out is what he's saying. And he's absolutely right. You know, it's interesting because I saw this piece by this young woman talking about farmers in Arkansas, and this young man as well. And it's a piece that I think I want to show you. I didn't know if I was going to show it, but I think it's apropos. So what I'm going to do is I am going to put it into the fold. I want you to listen to this young woman out of Arkansas because she's going to make a lot of sense to you. Let me put it on the centers. Take my face out of that. Listen to what she has to say.
Arkansas soil, that's right, racism. Last week, listen to me. Racism is the poison in Arkansas soil, that's right, racism. Last week, hundreds of Arkansas farmers stood in a room and broke down in prayer in front of their elected officials. They weren't praying for rain, guys. They weren't praying for sunshine. They weren't even praying for a bumper crop. They were praying because their farms, their family land, their way of life is collapsing under tariffs and trade wars. And here's the truth. Those tariffs, that trade war, that whole playbook was born out of racism. Farmers were told the story that punishing foreigners would make America strong again. They were told to clap when leaders wagged their finger at China, Mexico, or whoever else they decided was the villain of the week. They were told it was patriotism, but really it was racism dressed up in red, white, and blue, and farmers bought it. They cheered it. They co-signed it. And now they are the ones paying the bill. Look at soybeans. Without tariffs, U.S. beans leaving New Orleans are cheaper than Brazil. But with tariffs, suddenly Brazil is winning. And who did that? Not God, not nature, not fate. Your own leaders waving a racist flag and calling it strength. And the farmers who clapped for it are now on their knees begging for help. This isn't the first time. History is packed with proof that racism bankrupts the very people it fuels. Jim Crow didn't just brutalize black citizens. It strangled the Southern economy for generations. Segregation didn't just rob black kids of opportunity. It robbed the entire South of progress, creativity, and prosperity. The Chinese Exclusion Act of the 1880s, it cut off immigrant labor that helped build America, leaving industries starved. Japanese internment during World War II, well, that destroyed businesses, farms, and families, and the whole economy bore the cost. Every single time America lets racism drive policy, the poison spreads. It never just hits the target. It always circles back. And now here we are again. Farmers in Arkansas prayed out loud last week because they're broke. And they know it. And some of them voted for this mess. Some of them cheered when the tariffs went into place because they thought it would put others in their place. But you can't hate and expect to harvest prosperity. You cannot poison your neighbor's well without eventually drinking from it yourself. So let's call this what it is. Racism is the poison in your soil. It's why your crops can't compete. It's why your barns are empty. It's why you bowed your head in front of men in suits who don't care about you at all beyond your vote. Racism doesn't just starve the people you think are your enemies. It starves you. Arkansas, this is your wake-up call. You can pray all you want, but you have to face the truth. Nothing changes unless you do. Racism isn't strength, it's weakness. It's not power, it's poison. It's killing your farms, your family, and your future. Please wake up.
You know what I like about this I love it that it is a young lady. Young. She sees it. She sees it. And what happens then is at least what we can know is that as those old people die out, yeah, they're making a few of these bro men that are trying to keep the patriarchy alive, that is trying to keep white supremacy alive, but they're dying out. And a lot of these farmers that are doing this are dying out. The idea is we don't want them to take the country down. There's another young man that did a similar one as well, and I think he is apropos as well. Let me see. Should I play the? Yeah, let me go ahead and play him as well. I think he's worth a listen to as well. Let's go ahead and play him. Let's see. Para ver. All right, there we go.
As someone who worked on the Blue Oval Ford plant, Blue Oval City up here in Stanton, Tennessee, kind of, in between Jackson and Memphis, I stayed there for about a year last year working on this project. And let me tell you something. A woman who is claiming that she called ICE on that Hyundai plant in Georgia, this is going to be so much bigger than just Hyundai. Okay? Ford itself, the most American car manufacturer you can think of, every single bit of our machinery was set up and programmed by South Koreans. The engineering of the building, the engineering of the machines, every bit of it was done by SK Engineering out of South Korea. Yes, the same SK that is part of SKT T1 Telecom, the big league team. Yeah, Faker, this guy, their engineering branches who designed and set up these machines. What they do is for the years that the plant is being built, because South Korea is heavily invested in our electric vehicle manufacturing and production. So what they do is they design the machines, send them over here, we set them up, millwrights, everything else. We set the iron, we set the building up, we get everything up. And then they come over, set up the machines, and then train American workers how to run the machines. This woman not only just cost Georgia billions of dollars with this plant, because I highly doubt that South Korea will send their workers back. If they do, it's going to be under very strict rules for the Trump administration. If you don't think that word will get around to every other car manufacturer, because it's not just Hyundai. It is Ford, it's Chevy, it's Nissan, Mazda, Toyota. Every single one of them. The machines are designed, installed, and set up by South Koreans. When you think of car plants, it's intertwined. So no, you idiots have not only just cost Georgia billions, you've created a massive diplomatic problem that this administration will not be able to handle right. And on top of that, there's a good chance that any of these other car plants that have gone up in the last few years that haven't had their machines set up yet, odds are you've just fucked with those jobs as well. You are talking about tens of thousands of American jobs. Poof, up in smoke. So congratulations, MAGA. Your racism is once again going to cost us billions of dollars because you guys can't get over the fact that people who aren't white are better than you. Hi.
You know, it is amazing, right? Because again, like I said, the funny thing about it is that people look, everybody have a certain degree of prejudice because of how we were reared, and it is something that we have to teach ourselves how to extricate. You know, I mean, that one of the solutions was integration. Integration, the idea being that when people live among each other, they say, "Oh my God, you mean I put my pants on like you? Oh my God, you mean I love my daughter like you love your daughter? Oh my God, you mean I love a good fried chicken, a good catfish, a good oh God." I guess the only difference between us really is yeah, color is a stupid thing, isn't it? Oh my God. Now we know. But you see, the plutocracy, the capitalism is the one who has screwed all of us up, right? To think otherwise. To think otherwise. The capitalism has done it because they need us fighting each other so that they can screw us all. They need us fighting each other so they can screw us all. They've done a good job of it. And the farmers and all the people that voted for Donald Trump did a good job in buying all the crap, and now we're all as a country paying for it. But the woman who reported the plant, right, about seeing all these Koreans that are this and that. I mean, she's a very popular podcaster. I mean, TikToker, and she's proud to say that she's the one who did it. Let's see how proud she's gonna be as the international issue that has occurred now between Korea, because Donald Trump's administration isn't very smart. They act first and then think about the repercussions later. And that's what they did here. They acted first without thinking about all the possible repercussions that would come to pass. Sad, but that is what they did. Um, MAGA is turning into the dog that caught the car. Exactly, LVW. You nailed that right. But anyway, let me go. This one is gonna. I better get this other piece started because this is a bit long. So let's go ahead and do my soliloquy that I shortened up this morning because I really want to get this out. I want to start today by giving neoliberalism 101, but it's not really going to be in the context of true neoliberalism 101. It's going to be in the context of money. And I think this is important because we are snowed so often by the lies that they tell us about our own economy, lies they tell us about income, the lies they tell us about wealth. I don't know if you ever hear a right-wing person or the sycophants that defend the rich all of the times. People that would, whenever, progressives come out there and say, we need to tax the rich, we need to tax those who most are taken out of this system. There is this phantom argument that they use all of the times that they say things like, the rich doesn't have enough money to be taxed, or there's not enough money, there's not enough income out there. That's why we have to go broad base to the middle class. And, I can see where they're coming from. I understand where they're coming from because the ignorance of the statement was implanted not by them, but by the concerted efforts of those who, following the tenets of the Powell Memo being that document written by Democrat Lewis Powell, who was ascended to the Supreme Court by Republican Nixon. He was the lawyer for the Chamber of Commerce. He pointed out, look, man, people are getting smart. The progressives are really getting their message across. People are starting to ask the most important questions. Why do we do all the work? Why do they do all the work? No, the progressives are saying, why do we, progressive representing all the people, why are we doing all the work
but all the spoils go to the top. And that's what really happens. We do the work and they make the money. They take it all. That's what happens, folks. That is what happened. They don't tell you it's what happened. That's what happens. And people started to get it. And all in the 70s, that time of the year that Mayana makes fun of, all in the 80s, these people started to get, well, actually the 80s is when the clamp came down with Donald Trump, with Ronald Reagan, but folks started to understand what was happening. So the magic that they did, why they put that statement in there, and then mathematically people say, well, how much income is generated in this country? Oh yeah, if you claim that you could just tax the wealth, the income of the rich, you would never ever be able to, pay all these taxes that are needed to support the welfare state. The welfare state, they've made that sound pretty bad, but there's nothing called the welfare state that is bad. The welfare state just means we as a society collectively work to ensure that we all fulfill the preamble of the Constitution, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, and the part that says in order for the welfare of us all. And that's what it's all about. If you don't think about the welfare of all, if you don't think about collectivism for all, there's no point in society. You don't have a society. You have a fief servdom. You have a slavery master. It doesn't matter how you quote it. That's what you get. If you don't have a collective society where together we all work to make life better for all, we're not talking about equality. We're talking about equity, where everybody has equal access to success. If you want to make more than the other person, as long as you're doing more work, that's equitable. As an example, Brother Musk does very little. Let's just read LV, who says, if Elon Musk was forced to contribute proportionally to Social Security, it would be solvent for 75 years and he would never even miss the money. And you're right about that. Actually, if all were to do that, it'll be solvent forever going forward. But so let's explain the magic that these people do. The magic that these people do is redefine income. When you go to work, when LVW goes to make our children intelligent at school by being the teacher, when she goes to school and make people intelligent, she's doing something productive for society, and she gets a check. She gets a check to pay for her services, a very important service. When that engineer goes to work, he gets a check. He exchanges that check for his services. When the lawyer, the doctor, the janitor, the garbage collector, all of them do something that is immensely important to society, and they get a check. They get their income. And that income, in order for all of us to have streets and flowing water and bridges, we take a piece of that check and build something with it. But then there are those who get a check for doing nothing. They will say, well, I invest my money into something that give other people's a check. And for investing my money, I get a cut of everything they produce, irrespective of how long it takes. And let me tell you how arcane that type of a system is when implemented ad nauseum. That person who owns Intel, and Intel is owned by quite a few thousand people. They go ahead and they take their money and they give that money to Intel. It's called an investment. And when they invest, and we're not even talking about how they got the money in the first place. A lot of it is ill-gotten gains. Let me digress a minute. That rancher in West Texas who owns 1 million acres in West Texas, somehow that family got that land. King Ranch. Let's just look at the King Ranch. They got that, and forever on moving forward, all the oil on that land, all the pasture to graze their cattle on that land, all of that they took, they robbed, they stole, and it's theirs for centuries now, or several, over 100 years. It's theirs, right? And with that, for life, they're able to have assets, and they take some of that money and they invest in companies who pay the peons who make wages, the peons being the engineers, the lawyers, the doctors, etc. They get wages from the capital, those folks who we don't know how they got their money, but they invest. And for that, society, the way it is constructed today, gives them a cut of everything everybody who works for Intel makes. It gives them the profit from, let's say, that engineer and scientist design a chip. That engineer and scientist who design that chips get paid once, right? Or if they continue working, they get paid. But that chip lives on forever and ever and ever. So that stockholder, the shareholder who put just their money, not their work, they just said, I want a piece of what that worker makes. So they go ahead, they buy a stock in a company. The workers in the company, the slaves in the company do the work. They create the chip. They create all these things. And that person who had the capital to invest forever and forevermore gets a piece of the action for everybody who works at that factory. They lay you off, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They continue to make money doing nothing. That's the system. Can you blame them for using the system the way it's designed? No, I don't blame the shareholder. I mean, you have a lot of retirees that have money in these stock in Intel and all that. Do I want them to? No, I don't want them to disappear. I just want folks to understand the concept of how we have those who work for their jobs and those who simply sit on their you know what and make income from everybody else because they had capital. No matter how they got the capital, most of it, if you want to be technical about it, stolen. They invest their stolen capital and they're forever rich by doing nothing. Everybody likes to use as an example those who pulled themselves up and got rich from their bootstraps. What you find when you go into the underlying story, it's never that simple. From, people talk about them building stuff in a garage and also the people like, let's say, Bezos, who, started with just selling one book at a time and it turned into the best retailer. Those are the fantasies they tell. Just like the fantasies we hear about how our great country started. Our country wasn't great. We, over time, made our country great. But, you get all these myths about how we started, the Thanksgiving myth, the Christopher Columbus myth. These were savages. Christopher Columbus was a savage, but we learned these myths and then we turn it into folklore. And because we turn all these things into folklore, etc., we get to live the lie. And people are pained by the lie. So going back to the subject at hand. So we have the way that people make their money. Okay. Now, it's bad enough that we get the wealthy as loafers. In other words, I see a good deal. I invest in that good deal and I start to make money off of that good deal no matter what. I want to tell you a few of the other lies they tell. They say, well, that person, the poor peon, the poor peons, the sycophant peons who always are there to protect the wealthy who cares nothing about them would say, well, they invested their money. They put their money at risk. Okay. Yeah, they put their money at risk. You're right. Because some companies will fail. But the lie is that if these companies fail, these people lose their money. And that is false. When a wealthy person loses money in company number A, they don't lose that money. They recover that money through write-offs. That's how the tax system works. And that's why I say education is so important. So let's say I'm super wealthy and I buy a whole bunch of stocks in Intel. And let's say Intel goes under. But I also bought a whole bunch of stock in NVIDIA. NVIDIA starts to make a ton of money. And I start to make a ton of money in the capitalization that I did with NVIDIA. I won't start paying any taxes on NVIDIA until I recover the losses that I took in Intel. So even if I lose money in Intel, because I have investments in many other things, I write off those losses from Intel on my NVIDIA profits. So ultimately, I lose nothing. They don't tell you that. But these are all the magical things that the lies about, oh, these people take risks. In employment, you know who take risks? You see that engineer at Intel who is in that clean room of bad gases that even if it's in a small quantity, they breathe in and eventually get lung cancer. You know that farmer who's messing with those fertilizers to grow our food on those company farms that get cancer in their liver, etc. Those are the people taking risks. The American worker, you, the folks that are listening to me, you are the ones taking the risk, not the wealthy. But it gets even worse because here's the deal. When I call a large percentage of the wealthy, either they are psychopaths themselves or because of their lack of knowledge are implicit psychopaths. I'm serious. So all of us work, you know, LB do work as a teacher and all these other folks work as engineers, etc. All these people go to work and they make money and they pay wages. And I mean, their wages are taxed. Their income is taxed so that we can have streets and we can have air, clean air, all these good things that your taxes pay for. But, you know, they're a group that most benefit from all of the good things that society have to offer, streets and all of that don't want to pay their fair share. The wealthy person use the roads more than anybody else because their trucks from their factories, the airplanes that deliver their products, all these things they use more than anybody else to make income, but they always try not to pay. And people say, well, again, they're not making enough income if you calculate what income is. So what do? They redefine what is income. So while you get wages, you have income, and your income can be taxed at up to 30, I think the max now is 37 or 39%, somewhere around that. Your marginal increase in your wages, and we have a progressive thing. So you pay at the highest rate, you pay 30-something%. The wealthy person that is accumulating that wealth, they don't pay anywhere close to that. And let me tell you why. Because as they collect, they don't want to collect income as wages. They don't want to collect all their income as dividends. Dividends is like you own a stock, you get a percentage, it's like an interest rate, but it's a percentage. It's a profits that are divided to pay you a dividend. That dividend would be taxed as sort of not exactly at wages, but similar to wages, a higher tax rates. They don't want that. So instead, when these companies start to make profits, they don't necessarily want to only pay dividends because dividends are taxable, not as taxable as wages, but they're taxable. And, you know, they don't want to pay any taxes. So what do? They say, okay, let's redefine how we are going to be paid. We don't want to be paid fully in dividends. We want to be paid in tax appreciation. That means they want to see that Intel stock go up in price, what's known as capital gains. So when you're watching that TV and you see all the stock prices going up, that's people making money that, you know, first of all, not taxed at all, right? Because you don't pay taxes on capital gains, meaning the increase in the price of the stock, which makes you more money until you sell that stock. And even when you sell that stock, the amount you pay in taxes for capital gains, which is still income, still money, is different than the person who goes to work every day, working with their hands, putting their body at risk, building that dam, building all these things and putting themselves at risk. The person who sells a stock and get a huge gain in that stock pays less in taxes than the American worker. So that's one way that they get over the tax system, why we have a larger tax burden on all of us, why they talk about austerity, because they don't want to tax them. The money is there. We're just not taxing them. But it goes further. These people start to say, wait a minute, but is there some other way I can not pay any taxes? And they say, yeah, there's another way I can not pay any taxes. And how is that? Well, you know what we'll do? We'll create a new mechanism. I will keep all of my stocks appreciating yearly. They constantly appreciate. We constantly have the companies buy back their stocks. Instead of paying the dividends from those profits that we make, we take those profits and buy back stocks. When the government gives them subsidies, instead of hiring people, they take those subsidies and buy back stocks. Remember the PPP and all of that? People were getting paid like crazy and buying back their stocks. And that caused, because there are less stocks for the same company, the price per stock go up. These people make a lot of money tax free until they sell it, but they are not selling it. And why aren't they selling it? Because guess what they do? They go to a bank or an insurance company and they say, hey, I want you to loan me money. And the bank lends them money using the stock as a collateral for the money that they loan, that they will never, ever pay back because the bank is using the stocks as a collateral. So when they file their taxes, even as they're taking out millions of dollars in loans so that they can live however extravagant they want to, they pay no taxes because it's a loan, baby. And we don't pay taxes on wealth. We don't pay taxes on wealth, which is the only way to solve our problem. We have got to have a wealth tax because that is where all the money is hidden, in extraordinary wealth. And when they say, but there's not enough money, you can't tell me that 3 people control more than 20% of all the wealth in the country, and we don't have the money there by taxing these people. It's a fraud on your intelligence. It's a fraud on you. It's a theft of our resources, and that's the economic system we have. I just said it the way it is. You listen to CNBC, they make it sound sexy, like it is something everybody has the opportunity to do and everybody can participate, etc. It's a lie. It is a psychopathic pathway that the wealthy use to constantly extract all the services, all what we produce. We are a rich country. I don't think people understand how rich we are. And the inequities, the inequalities in the way we distribute our money is by design. And that design is called unfettered capitalism. And if anybody who has heard this discourse, and assuming that I was marginally well in saying it, let's say I did a fairly good job in explaining it. If you are still out there trying to say, let's have austerity and not tax the wealthy, then if too many of you believe that, the country is in irreparable trouble. Because the reason we are in the state that we're in today is the pilfer of that class on the rest of us. It's the pilfer, the pillage. And it's done, I talk about antiseptic slavery. It is done so nicely. It is done so antiseptically that you don't see it. And that's the magic in all of this. As I'm putting the knife in you, I'm smiling and telling you I love you. That's what type of economic system we have. And until we understand it, learn it, and then unabashedly elect people who are going to go to those parasites and tell those parasites the game is over. We're taking back what's ours. Until that day comes, we will continue having starving babies. We'll continue making bombs instead of building canals. Ironically, and this may sound horrendous, but ironically, China is no good person, the government, but they actually see some merit with their belt and roads or whatever they called it around the world that now America fears in understanding some of these concepts. And that is the case in understanding these concepts. Like I repeat, and I wish more people would understand this for real. All of what's occurring today has been foretold for decades as we spoke about this economic system. My first, and I always talk to Richard Wolff, economist Richard Wolff from the UMass, well-known economist. I always tell him that if it were not for him, because I was it was interesting. It was interesting that I strike. E2247 says to solve our problems, do a nationwide
general strike until 47. Vance, Johnson, Scudder, and for all resign. I mean, I would love that. I would love that, but it will take some energy, some organization to do that. But I love that idea. But let me just say again, Richard Wolff has been prognosticating exactly where we are. Like I tell everybody, this economic system is following the mathematical formula perfectly. And it will continue to follow it until it completely reams us all. There's no way out of it unless we have complete systemic change. There is no way out of it. The bad thing about it is Donald Trump has played the wrong card, because what Donald Trump has done is exacerbated the problem, because we have mitigated it many times with different inputs. We've done it, right? With some clawback on pulling taxes back, etc. We have mitigated some of the damage that extended the glide path to failure. You know, Obamacare, believe it or not, extended the glide path to failure. When Biden came into power, extended the glide path to failure, made it a little bit longer before failure occurred. Here comes Donald Trump. He has exacerbated the possibility of failure. His policies have made the glide path toward failure steeper. Steeper. And when we really get that, I hope it's not too late. NBC News from Paul Fleming. Breaking: Supreme Court agrees to quickly decide a high-stakes showdown over some of President Trump's tariffs, a signature policy of his second term. The court will hear oral arguments the first week of November. I think the Supreme Court is going to do exactly what they normally do. For all practical purposes, likely rubber stamp Donald Trump. All the lower courts are saying that the lower court said that the tariffs are illegal. Watch them rubber stamp it. Watch them give Donald Trump another power. I think there must be somebody. The Supreme Court, those 6 Supreme Court justices must be getting a whole lot of pizza boxes. Put it that way. They must be getting a whole lot of pizza boxes. Anyway, folks, give me a call. 281-823-7747. Again, the number, I'm done with the presentations. 281-823-7747. I'll put the number in both chats. 281-823-7747. If you want to call in and say something, we got about 4 minutes that we can talk a little bit. Una vez más lo voy a repetir, 281-823-7747, 281-823-7747. Let me see while I go up there. I think I saw Goon Gollenberg speak to the viewer. Okay. Hi, viewer. How are you doing? You have anything else to add? This is some boring live. Oh, I'm sorry that I'm boring. Sorry, Goblinver. Sometimes when you're talking about numbers, it's not quite, what can I say? You try to be as entertaining as you can. Numbers, a lot of times, just aren't entertainment. Forgive me, Mr. Goblin Ever. All right, let's see what else we got. What else have we got other than my boredom? Let's see. I think I saw Bruce in here. Let me see if I think I saw Bruce. Are you still here, Bruce? Let's see. Para ver. Anyway. Give me a call. 281-823-7747. Let's see. Give me a call. If anybody, Devon me says, I have some, they like 40 of them. And I don't know what that means. So I won't try to figure what that means. RJ, welcome aboard. Professor Galloway, welcome aboard. Sandra Dingler, welcome aboard. Lee Grant says too many Dems, leftist progressives are ignoring crime and illegal immigrants. This could result in losing the midterms. I don't think so. I honestly don't think so. Crime only because, it's funny because Donald Trump is failing. So he says, let me see what's happening. Crime, let's bring up crime. we can solve crime easily. Giving people opportunities to work, giving people opportunities to do a lot. I tell you. Pollard says we have a lot to address without dragging up the past. Well, the thing about it, Bruce, is um, I wish we didn't have to drag up the past, but I think a lot of what MAGA believes have to do with their false belief of the past. And if they're still holding on to the fallacies of the past, how can we get to the present and the future? When they think that people are doing badly, let's use women for something neutral. When they look at women and the performance of women and try to say that has something to do with something it doesn't, that's a failure of understanding the past. You have to know something about the past for the future. Let's see. March KJ says, that guy sounds like an ignorance. We need data to live better. March KJ says, oh my God, how do we learn if we don't understand what happened? Yeah, we have to understand how we got here. Go ahead, my dear brother Ray. Come on in.
Yeah, I was telling a friend of mine, the reason why there's such an attack on the education system is because the best misnomer is saying that, well, I don't know if it's a misnomer, but basically they say those who don't have knowledge of history are doomed to repeat it. And actually, I was looking at a Facebook meme, and it's like we're currently in that cycle again. It's like we get, Republicans are in power, they enact their policies, and then the economy crashes. Then, we fall into Democratic power. They fix everything. The recovery is slow. Then people say, we need a change. Then a Republican comes into place. And it's just, what can we do to break this vicious cycle as Americans is what I wonder every day.
I think,
the cycle of complacency.
No, I don't think it's complacency per se. I think it is the fact that make America great again can resonate. I want to go back to what my brother Bruce has to say when he says we have a lot to do going forward, which is true. So why bring up the past? Make America great again. How can you have a symbol of make America great again if you don't know the past? When was America great for me? When was America great for you? It makes people coalesce around the wrong things. My thing is education. My thing is one has to be educated, right? Because if one is not educated, exactly what you said, the past gets repeated, right? And so when somebody comes out and says we should make America great again, and then you start to ask the question, when was America great for women in the 50s? It wasn't. When was America great for the Chinese? We have to be. I mean, people need to learn, and learning that doesn't get people upset. When they talk about not teaching critical mass theory, all this kind of stuff, because it's going to hurt some people about what their ancestors do. No, all this stuff can be taught in a manner that, I don't want anybody out there thinking that I'm holding them guilty for something that somebody else did. That's not the case. But where you hold somebody guilty or somebody accountable is if after they learn what has been done, they want to keep the modus operandi, then that's a problem, in my humble opinion. Your thoughts, and then I got to go.
Yeah, well, we've been lied to all our lives that America was the heroes in the story, and that's basically not the case. And the rich folks like Batman and Tony Stark, we idolize them as the ones that were gonna get bored with their wealth and their privileges and say, oh, they're gonna build something, and save us all, and that's not the case.
Like I said, to be a billionaire, and I mean this to the depths of my heart, before I went into this, I've amassed in the past money. I've spent it all because I've been doing this for the last 15 years. But let me tell you, there are two kinds of folks that can amass money: psychopaths and those that don't necessarily keep most of it. And I mean that from the depths of my heart. A guy that has $1 billion that is trying to find tax breaks. I remember the first time I got to get out of here, but I remember the first time I made a substantive amount of money. And I got a call from this accountant that says we can hide it by doing X, Y, Z. We can create this. I'm like, why? I was blessed, man. I was blessed. I want to pay my tax, man. And they thought I was stupid. And that's why I talk about the difference between psychopaths and others. You get $1 billion and you're trying to run away from paying a little bit more taxes. That's a psychopath. But anyway, I got to go, Ray. Thank you so kindly for calling in, my brother.
Thank you again for giving us the space. We always appreciate you, brother. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, brother. See you tomorrow. Anyway, folks, I got to get out of here. I'm a little bit behind. Please support the program however you can. We can't do this without you. So please consider becoming a paid subscriber today. How can you do that? Please go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. And I'm putting both of the links in both chats. Please just sign up. It's very inexpensive and you'd be doing a great thing to keep us being able to put the message out. Thank you so kindly. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.